The wind slapped my face like a handful of ice, and the snow that clung to my parka collar melted into salty beads. Out on the flight line, the red hazard lights pulsed like a heart trying to hold its rhythm inside a whiteout. I had just signed off the last issue of the day, a pallet of field heaters, when my phone buzzed inside my glove. The screen flashed Sage, all caps, a name that felt equal parts family and fatigue. I swiped. Wind hissed across the mic. Her voice came thin but sharp. "Listen to me. I'm pregnant and I can't do this alone anymore. You should get out of the army. The family needs you." A gull dipped into the gray and vanished into milky air. I leaned my back against the warehouse wall to cut the gusts. I'd heard a dozen versions of this distress call, each time with an extra coat of guilt and a promise it was just for a few months. Not today. Today it came like an order. Ditch the uniform, ditch retirement, ditch the patch on my shoulder, trade it all for a lifetime nanny badge. "I'm not getting out," I said, steady as if I were reading the safety SOP. "I'll help, but I'm not quitting my job." Silence held for a beat. I heard hospital sheets rustle on her end before Sage exhaled. "You owe the family, Harper. That's what Mom will say. She'll bring up the necklace." My chest pinched the way cold can reach right under your ribs. Mom's silver necklace, little star charm, edges worn smooth, was the one heirloom she kept in a dark wooden box on the living room shelf back when we wore hand-knit sweaters and thought winter was magic. Last time I saw it, the stars tapped each other with a soft chime while she dusted them. I didn't put it away, didn't touch it, just walked past. "Sage," I said, letting each word hang in the frost, "leave Mom out of this call." "Your choice," she answered, a strange sweetness creeping in. "But if you walk out, people are going to hear the truth about that box, about you." A hard gust shouldered in, rolling snow like a silk ribbon across my eyes. The warehouse door thudded against the steel frame. SBC Lewis poked his head out. "Sergeant, pallets locked. You should head in. Whiteout's coming." I nodded, flashed him a 5, and hung up with my heart still ticking to the word whiteout. That's the name of disappearance, and the way everything leaves a mark. I flipped open my blue notebook, pressed the pen into the tooth of the paper, and wrote, "Operation Whiteout. First box, separate finances. Second, secure a bunk on post. Third, collect receipts with my name on them." At the bottom, I underlined silence twice. Anyone who's lived on a base in winter knows there are stretches when you move through poor visibility by following reflective markers and muscle memory. Leaving a codependent mess works the same way. You don't run. You follow the route you mapped, eyes glued to the reflective strip called honor. Driving back, the gate radio pushed traffic advisories. Lights on, visibility low. Road signs wore thick snow, street names dulled to smudges. I thought about 3 years of space heaters carried up her stairs, gas bills I covered for now and forgot to log, nights I bounced a sleepy kid in the kitchen while frozen pipes thawed like they were learning to breathe. A few weeks stretched into just this winter. Into summer will be better. The summer came and we were still standing on a cracking sheet of ice. I swung into a grocery still open and grabbed milk, a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter. I kept the receipt crinkling in my pocket like a tiny certificate that some things still belong to me. Basic needs, basic choices, the basic line between help and being used. At checkout, the kid asked if I needed a bag. I shook my head and pinched the little slip showing the last 4 digits of my card. My number, nobody else's. Back in the barracks room, I set the kettle on. Steam fogged the little mirror above my boot rack. The only sounds were the kettle ticking and snow hissing against the roof. I opened the notebook and wrote, "Open a new account, change passwords, turn off shared payments." Next line, claim a locker, request a bunk. Next, have Lewis check the dashcam/GPS. I ticked each square like I tick crates at the end of shift. A truck revved outside. Light swept the ceiling for a second. I thought about Mom, the wooden box, that old silver star, and MSG Talix line. Snow doesn't lie. My phone vibrated. A flood of messages from Sage crawled down the screen, accusations preloaded like barbed hooks. One photo stopped me. A blurred shot of the living room, the wooden box not where it usually sat. Maybe she wanted to stir guilt. Maybe she was moving things. I lowered the phone and let my forehead rest against the cold window glass, listening for my heartbeat to fall back into the generator's steady hum. I'd lived 3 years like a warehouse guard who never went off shift, the key lanyard always on my neck, ready to open for another emergency. Tonight I was the last one out, and the door would lock. I put the notebook away and slid a cream-colored card from my parka pocket, crisp, preprinted. I have moved out. I'll be in touch, clean as a lawful order. I pictured setting it on her chipped kitchen counter, stepping through a porch glazed with ice, and closing the door without saying anything else. No more couple weeks, no more it'll be fine. The kettle clicked off. I poured tea and sat on the narrow bed, mint steam in my face. It had been a long time since calm felt like this, the kind you get when a direction finally sets. In the morning, I'd brief MSG Talic, harden the checklist, have Lewis ret-check the gear. I'd kill shared payments, pack only what I had receipts for, send the move-out email. I'd walk straight through this whiteout by instruments called discipline. The screen flashed again. One new text, metal cold, no punctuation, no emoji. If you walk out, I'll make sure you've got no uniform left to wear. The first time I hauled a box into Sage's apartment, the air could have cut skin. The windows sweated a milky fog. The heater wheezed like a stubborn old man. Sage set out 2 bowls of canned chicken soup and said just a few weeks. In the same tone people used to slap a sticky note on the fridge. I slapped a real one up there. My duty schedule, morning PT, a few blank squares for chores. A few weeks, hung between us like a wind chime no one bothered to take down. At first I paid the gas because the bill came late and the furnace was coughing. I bought blankets, swapped the air filter, shimmed a crooked cabinet leg. In my head it was just clearing back orders at home, the kind of work built into a supply NCO's DNA. Sage was all gratitude, cheap shampoo and fruit-scented perfume mixed into a carnival smell when she hugged me. "Once I settle into the new job, it's over," she said. I nodded because the word over is a rung on the ladder for people who live by checklists. Then new job became extra shifts, became new boss, became medical leave. I started getting up earlier to drop my nephew at school, sprint home to shower, and make it to the warehouse to count stock. Nights, I washed dishes, cleared toys, repacked a school backpack. I logged the fronted cash in square. Block letters, 21, 35 for milk and bread, 14, 09 for tape, 6, 89 for a spare flashlight. The little numbers marched in rows like footprints in soft snow, easy to cover, still there. Spring showed up like a promise. I submitted my air assault packet and felt like a kid with amusement park tickets. I built work capacity, worked rope climbs, sent Lewis photos of my blistered hands just to brag. Progress. The night before the tryout, Sage leaned in the doorway with red eyes. "I need you with the kid in the morning," Sitter fell through. I looked at the checklist on the fridge, my lines, my boxes, and called to push my PT. Next morning, I poured my coffee down the sink, sat beside a coughing kid, and listened to the school bus whine past. The ticket turned into wet paper, the ink into a gray smear. All spring, I told myself, next class, like schools ran as predictably as trains. Next class collided with a cold, then a layoff, then a past-due light bill. I learned to read Gambling's handwriting in scraps, a quartered lottery flyer in her pocket, a midnight text about floating a friend for a day. Sometimes a cash envelope she asked me to hold, then forgot. When I asked, she looked away, cried, "I just tried once, just this time." Those this times lined up like identical cans from the same lot, new labels, same contents. Mom visited with a scuffed wooden box. She set it on the table, poured tea, told the story of Grandma's silver star necklace she wore on her wedding day. Mom tried it on. The room warmed when the charm flashed in a shaft of sun. Sage stared long, touched the star, pulled back. She smiled thin, asked softly, "Who does that go to someday?" Mom got shy like a girl and said, "It's family, no one's taking it anywhere." I said nothing, but I saw the way Sage watched the box slide back onto the shelf. That look wasn't envy, it was math. When rent was late a week, I paid. When her tire blew, I paid. When the school wanted a new PE kit, I paid. I stapled receipts to a stiff folder like I was tagging pallets. First, I told myself one time to help her pop up. Then twice so she keeps rhythm. Then a third time because she's pregnant. Every month had a reason, the way every Alaskan month has a freak wind. I started to forget I didn't live at work. No duty shift lasts forever. One iron night, the windows were shut, but wind still sang through a seam like a cracked flute. Sage texted that her friend was stuck and needed a little cash, asked me to hit the ATM. I checked my balance, pulled the bare minimum, grabbed milk on the way back. At the service counter, a lottery magazine hung crooked. That crooked edge grabbed my eye like peeling tape. Driving home, the tiny casino out by the highway blinked its red sign into the snow, not bright, just enough to call. I tried doing it the rules way with Sage, budget sheets, rough debt totals, weekly targets. I showed her how I keep receipts, how I set alarms for bills. She nodded, doodled flowers in the margins like she was back in school, promised next month. Next month came and the flowers wilted, numbers swelled. I learned the discipline of shutting up so our living room didn't become a courtroom. Silence is a language. Mine said I was dragging a glacier with bare hands. Lewis came by once to fix the printer, glanced around and asked, "You live here now, Sergeant?" I gave the dry laugh and said, "Just temporary." He nodded. Temporary is the longest word in English. I laughed, then realized it wasn't a joke. Sometimes Mom opened the wooden box and polished the necklace. The silver against her throat pulled family film reels out of storage. 3 kids in wool scarves, cocoa powdered dust, wet boots squeaking. I'd never held it long enough to memorize the metal's temperature. I loved it for what it was, the last little thing Mom kept from a time she still believed in easy days. Sage loved it, too, in a different tense, as a promise that a short errand could change her life. After the night, I saw the lottery flyer in Sage's hand. I started clocking the box's position. It moved, tucked deeper in the shelf, tilted, sitting right at the edge like it wanted to be picked up. I didn't know if it was Mom, Sage, or my own nerves turning habit into alarm. By the third winter, a hard crust lay over everything. My folder held close to 100 skinny receipts. My handwriting changed, from tenant nice to sentry blocks, the script of someone afraid to forget the detail that would hold her up later. I started taking room photos, an unconscious warehouse habit when you turn over a shift. Living room, photo frame, wooden box, left corner. I didn't call it evidence. I called it a map. Maps only matter when the person holding them decides to leave. One late night, Sage came home with her eyes lit like somebody turned on a lamp behind them. She talked about a last chance from someone very reliable, smiled like she'd found a shortcut on the ice. I set a mug of tea in front of her and said it was time for a community debt class. She slid me a paper-thin smile. "You don't trust me." I answered in silence, the language I'd learned. A few days later, Mom called, careful, asked if I'd seen the wooden box. "I could have sworn I left it in the shelf," she said, "but it feels a little off." I opened the cabinet and saw a clean rectangle in the dust where the box usually sat. I told her maybe she'd moved it while cleaning. She hesitated, said her memory's not what it used to be. I almost said, "Don't leave it at Sage's," then swallowed it, no proof, just a cold hunch. Next day, Sage texted me, "Please don't touch my stuff," with a smiley face. I stared at it and felt thin ice crack under my boot. I understood I was about to get dragged into something bigger than a few weeks, something that would turn my pile of receipts into little life preservers on a black river. That night, I opened the fridge for water and found the lottery magazine wedged beside the eggs. I pulled it out, folded it, dropped it in the trash, then fished it back out, dusted it off, laid it flat by the stove. I needed to look straight at it so I'd stop faking with myself. The cover read, "Luck favors the bold." I laughed because it sounded like a slogan written by someone who's never kept a ledger. Morning, I stood in the mirror, clipped on my name tape, straightened my coat, and told the woman staring back, "Temporary is a habit, not a schedule." I went to the warehouse and started my shift by counting fasteners, letting cold steel remind my hands of the simple truth. When an object leaves, it leaves a same-shaped empty. People do too. Snow doesn't lie. It just holds a place for the truth to stop. That night, Mom called again, voice shaking, said she'd bring the box back to her house this weekend. I told her she should. When I hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen a long time with the fridge humming like a small engine. A few weeks had expired ages ago. We just hadn't signed the paperwork. I opened my notebook, flipped to the first pages, breathed in old ink, and wrote a line as steady as someone carrying a crate. Time to leave. I killed the light and stared through the window at a sky salted with white. Snow fell like ash from a promise burned halfway. Somewhere under the ribs, I heard a dry crack, ice splitting, a warning about that necklace. The perfect excuse for the next storm. Mornings in the warehouse always start the same. Oil and rubber in the air, metal kissing metal like a cocktail party for machines. I set my notebook on the cold table, took a breath, and counted off like I was receiving a pallet. Item 1, separate finances. Item 2, secure safe housing. Item 3, small evidence that holds. Before the rest of the crew clocked in, I texted MSG Talik for a quick sit-down. Her reply came back warm and clipped. My office. Her office looked like a storm hunter's tent. Weather maps pinned up, paracord coiled neat, a folding blade lined up perfectly with a pen. She poured hot tea into a mug that read, "Stay dry, move smart," and I laid it out without decoration, the way you deliver a safety brief. 3 years, fronted bills, the gambling signs, Mom's wooden box, the threat to call the MPs. She listened like someone who can hear snow falling and ice cracking underneath it. "You don't need a speech," she said. "You need a procedure. Soldiers use procedures to outlast storms. Families need them too." We opened my notebook and drew a grid. 1 column action, next proof, 3rd risk, last backup plan. "Separate finances," I said. "Proof, bank emails, password change history, screenshots of removing shared wallets. Risk, blowback when she notices. Plan B, keep silent, no arguing, notify in writing. On-post housing," MSG added. "Proof, bunk assignment, locker receipt. Risk, blocked at the old door. Plan B, bring a witness, leave a card. Receipts," I wrote. "Keep everything from milk to gas, no receipt, take a photo, time stamp it." She nodded slowly, voice even as boots on hardpack. "And remember, don't argue, don't text novels, leave a trail, snow doesn't lie." I repeated it and tucked the words under my tongue like a mint. Leaving her office, I hit the computer bay and logged into my bank. Little boxes blinked like reflectors along a runway. I changed passwords, turned on 2-factor, booted every unknown device. A shared wallet popped up in the corner. I clicked, remove. It felt like popping a tiny shackle off my wrist. Confirmation emails rolled in. I filed them in a folder named Winterproof. I redirected part of my pay to a new account and labeled it primary. The plain words that looked like nothing felt like pounding a tent stake before the wind hits. At housing, I asked for a bunk and a locker. The clerk tapped, smiled. Lucky timing, one just opened. The key hit my palm with that heavy, physical safety you can't fake. In the hallway, I snapped a photo of the key and tagged the date. Back in the warehouse, I held it up to Louis like it was a baby medal. "Nice," he said. "When do you want me on the dash cam?" "This afternoon," I said. "GPS, too, lock it tight." We stood by my car in a frosted lot, door cracked, his tablet plugged into the OBD port. He typed fast. A breadcrumb trail of locations popped up like boot prints in a line. "New passcode, only you know it," he said. "Dashcam has loop mode, I'm killing overwrite. You'll keep the last 48 hours. I nodded, thanked him, and took a picture of the settings. None of this was to win an argument. These were little lights to get me through the white wall without drifting off the shoulder. That night I grabbed toilet paper, batteries, and a bottle of dish soap. 3 items and a box of tea, counted out at the belt like I was checking ammo. I slid the receipt into my inside pocket. On the way back, I ducked into the hardware store for painter's tape and a fat tip marker. I used to roll my eyes when people said small things are the line between chaos and order. Turns out they were right. In my room, I labeled every bag, Harper paid date. I built a space where one woman could breathe. I wrote a calm email to Sage, listed what I'd pick up, asked for a convenient window, told her I'd moved onto post and that any support would go through a supervision account in Mom's name. No blame, no heat, just timelines and methods, the only language I'm fluent in. After sending, I slid a cream note card into my parka, smoothing the edge like a boarding pass. I'd set it on the old kitchen counter like a shift change signature. Next day, MSG waved me into the annex and pointed to the weather map. A band of bruised blue-purple was crawling in from the west, heavy snow. 2 days, she said. White out, you won't see anything but white, that's your safe window. Everyone else hunkers down, you move, quietly. The words 2 days dropped into my gut like a stone. She added, slow and final, don't drag it out. People only change when you pull the pillow away. And remember, don't leave a fight. Leave evidence. I called Mom on the walk back. I didn't say storm. I asked if she needed ice melt, told her not to keep the box where anyone could reach it. She sighed like sandbags lowering off shoulders and said she'd bring it when she stayed with me a couple nights. Good, I said, and let the invisible rope around my middle slip 1 notch looser. That evening, I rolled a medium suitcase onto the floor. Warehouse logic. Compartment A, items with receipts. Compartment B, personal things with no resale value. Compartment C, documents. On top, I set a slim envelope with hard copies of the move-out email, the locker key photo, GPS settings, dashcam info. On the flap, I wrote, "If MPs ask, this is the log." Not because I wanted them to ask, but because life loves the worst moment test. Sage's texts dripped in the quiet like a leaky faucet. You doing all this for show? Don't be dramatic. There's still your stuff here. I didn't answer. I screenshotted everything into a folder. I killed my ringer so the phone only thrummed like a trapped bug in a drawer. I needed my head to stay like ice, cold enough to take a footprint without cracking. Next morning, the sky looked stretched tight like gray canvas. Louis handed me a tiny thumb drive. Dashcam and logs backup, he said. I named it Fox for fun. I snorted. Not Caribou for local flavor. Fox is smarter, he winked. I dropped it into the same pocket as my receipts. It felt like another plate of armor. By lunch, housing emailed that my bunk paperwork was ready. I signed, clipped a copy into Winterproof, and swung by the PX for heavy trash bags and wipes. Freedom's weird, it smells like new plastic and thermal paper, not fireworks. At dusk, I checked in with MSG. Accounts done, bunk done, GPS/dashcam done, courtesy email sent. She nodded toward the window. Fat, wet flakes had started to fall. "You pull your stuff tomorrow," she said. After that, silence. Let the storm say the rest. I nodded. In my head, the route glowed like reflective tape. Enter, take what I have receipts for, set the card, out, lock. That night I set an alarm, then shut it off. I didn't want to pin the plan to a number. The roof snapped and ticked. My fingers traced the edge of winterproof. Outside, the wind shifted and something banged in the lot, just the world reminding everything to be where it belongs. The phone buzzed. Weather alert. Bold snowflake icon. Blizzard warning, whiteout conditions expected. The word expected read like an operations order. 2 days. Weather window. Clean exit. I flipped the screen face down, sat up, opened my notebook, and wrote 4 words. Tomorrow we move. In the corner, I drew a single dot, my mark on the snow of my own life. So in the morning, I wouldn't need to remember anything except to step through the door. Morning poured white over the sky like someone tipped a gallon of milk. The wind wasn't howling anymore. It droned, steady and low, pushing the whole town down a notch like the hum of an industrial AC. Every step across the lot gave a crisp little snap. Fresh snow on old snow made the ground feel springy. I pulled my zipper up, tapped the winterproof envelope in my inner pocket the way my hand knows a control panel, and started the engine. On the windshield, flakes shattered under the wipers into long, watery strokes like ink dragged across a page. The whiteout had dropped its curtain. People went inside. I headed out. Lewis waited at the north turn with his beanie yanked over his ears. He gave me a thumbs up and pointed at his phone. "GPS is logging, dash cams rolling. I'm right here, call if you need me." I nodded. No hero music, no speeches, just good procedure on a cold day. I shifted into drive. Tires grated against snow with a dry, sandpaper sound. Sage's apartment showed up a few breaths later than normal because the world was stuffed with cotton. I nosed to the curb and grabbed a spare towel from the trunk to cover my boots. Self-taught habit from living there. Don't track extra dirt into a mess. Before I turned the key, I snapped photos. The iced-over stoop, the door plaque, the salt-scuffed handle. Deep breath, key in. Inside smelled like a place that's been waiting too long, damp fabric, dish soap, canned food. I flipped the light. The yellow wavered on the ceiling like it was unsure. Living room quiet. The wooden box wasn't in its usual spot. I paused half a beat, then kept moving. I wasn't here for the box, I was here for my things. Notebook out. Camera on, follow the sequence. Closet first. I slid hangers, laid shirts flat into the suitcase. Compartment A. Items with receipts, taped the receipts to each thing with the painter's tape I'd bought last night. Every click of the stapler sounded like sealing a lead tag on a proper crate. Compartment B. Books, notebooks, my worn-out running shoes. I shot before and after of the shelves, wrote left table cleared in my notes. Kitchen. The pan set I bought, the little steel kettle. Wipe the counter, shoot before and after again. Not because I'm obsessed with clean, because I know the future gets built out of blurry photos when someone else starts telling a different story. On the table, I placed the cream card and wrote my name and the date by hand. I have moved out. I'll be in touch. The words dropped the static in my head a few decibels. I laid the key on top, took a photo, and tucked the spare into the envelope for the building manager. The form already filled out, just needed sealing. The heater coughed like it aged a decade, then went quiet. In my nephew's room, I knelt and eased off 2 photos I'd taken, a beanie tilted over a gap-toothed grin, a white fox he'd drawn standing in blue-green mountains. I slid both into a stiff folder and packed them. I didn't take anything of his except what he'd given me. Memories need packing, too, or they smear. I stuck a pack of colored pencils in my pocket, then took them back out and returned them to their cup. Discipline lives there. One last circuit. I wiped the door handle, killed the lights, left the kitchen lamp on to throw a little glow. A folded lottery magazine sat in the fridge door. I didn't touch it. I stood still and listened to the apartment one last time. Tiny sounds, the hairline hiss of a settling wall, the window glass trembling under wind. No voices, no fight, just me and what I carried. I opened the front door and the white wind shouldered in, flinging a handful of snow that peppered the mat. Collar up, step out, pull the door shut. Feel the latch drop into the strike plate with that exact right clunk like safing a weapon. On the stoop, I handed the key envelope to the building manager I'd arranged to meet. He tugged his scarf down, eyes red from cold. He nodded when I said the unit number. I took a picture of him taking the envelope. The paper went gray in the storm light. He raised a hand. The wind stole whatever word he tried to say. We understood each other with nods. I turned away. Snow stuck to my lashes and puffed with every blink like spent confetti. I slid into the car and shut the door. Thunk, the outside world left behind the fogged glass. My face flushed as my breath rebounded. I buckled the suitcase into the back seat like it was a passenger that needed to get home. The phone rattled, 3 texts from Sage in a row, chiseled words, traitor. You owe me. Mom will hear. I didn't answer. Screenshot, file, wipers on. The car crept forward, rear tires fishtailed once on glaze ice and caught. The road had no horizon, only 2 dark stripes like rails guiding me back to base. Near the gate, the radio said side streets were closed and told everyone to stay home. I thought of MSG's line, "The storm is your ally today because it makes everything quiet. Quiet so you can leave without a last tug of war." The gate appeared like the back of some big sleeping animal, amber lights, guards bending into the wind. I flashed my card and rolled through, like stepping from gray into warm honey. In the lot, I let the engine tick down until my pulse matched the pace of a heated room. The barracks met me with the smell of hot water and new plastic. I dragged the suitcase in, parked it by the bed, put the kettle on. The bare kitchenette looked like a clean page. I set out the kettle, 2 mugs, a box of peppermint. I hung my coat and patted the inner pocket, winterproof still there, thick and square. I opened it and ran the checklist, photo of the card, photo of the key handoff, shelf before and after, sent email, receipts, manager receiving the envelope. Everything lined up like a formation waiting for roll call. Outside, the wind pushed long breaths under the door, not angry anymore, just patient like a good gate guard. The phone buzzed across the table. Sage's messages thudded down like rocks, a string of curses, vague threats, little voice notes full of breathing. I didn't listen. Not listening is a decision like any other order. I locked the screen, counted slow, poured tea. Steam blurred the mirror above the sink. My face faded and returned like somebody who'd walked through heavy weather and come back inside. Another burst of messages. Then, silence. Not empty. Changed channels. I watched the dead screen, heard the kettle kick off, and the wind tap the wall, reminding me I'd cleared the hardest door. Notebook open. I slashed a big check mark through move out. The pen rasped against paper with the satisfying little scratch warehouse people love the way cooks love the sound of a knife on board. At the bottom I wrote, "Stay quiet. Let the storm say the rest." I wrapped both hands around the mug and let the warmth move through my chest. I'd pictured this for months. A small room, a tight bed, a boiling kettle, a woman breathing like her lungs had been handed back. Snow kept falling without getting tired. Every flake looked like a tiny blank slip issued to anyone ready to rewrite their story. The phone lay still as a stone. Warmth crept through dry fabric and into my fingers. Then the screen popped, a battery icon, not a text. I laughed at myself, almost embarrassed by how relieved a little piece of plastic could make me. Right then it buzzed again, unknown number, just digits. I didn't open it. I let it sit there like a fish under ice. Waves would keep slapping the surface a while yet before the lake calmed. I sipped tea, watched snow whisper across the glass, and waited for the quiet to say what it held. Night dropped another shade darker. I slid into bed and pulled the blanket to my chest. The whole room sounded like a ship's cabin in weather, tight, steady, under control. On the table edge, the cream card showed a faint embossed echo through the back, as if a message meant to be read and reread but never changed. I have moved out. I'll be in touch. I closed my eyes. The wind shifted. A distant clank. Then everything settled into a heavy, solid quiet. In that quiet, the phone lit once more. No buzz this time, just an email icon. I didn't read it. I left it on the other side of a blanket, a door, and a decision I'd already signed. The morning after the storm, the post woke up in metal sounds. Gate arms lifting, chains clacking, the PA calling formation in a cold, ragged voice. The sun didn't rise so much as dust the lot with a chalky silver. I folded my blanket, made tea, and set the winter-proof envelope flat across the table like a straight edge. While my hands were still warm, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. Sergeant Quinn, this is Sergeant Rivera, military police. We have a complaint naming you. I'd like you to come in and give a statement. The word complaint scraped the glass. I drew a breath. Yes, Sergeant, I'll cooperate fully. I'm requesting a full and fair investigation. I have documentation to submit. On the other end, a small pause, the kind a cop takes when he expects fire and gets a checklist. Good, Rivera said. 15 minutes. MP office, North Gate. I shrugged into my coat, slid the envelope into the inside pocket, and added the little fox thumb drive Lewis had given me. The wind didn't grind this morning. It passed my face like a polite stranger. On the walk, I called MSG Talek. Go, she said. Keep it short, keep it accurate, don't argue. Let the paper talk. Then JAG. Captain Reed gave me 3 rules. Don't speculate about motives. Don't volunteer anything that isn't asked. Don't overstate what you have. If they want more than your scope, tell them you'll provide it by email per JAG guidance. Keep your bearing, soldier. The MP office smelled like plastic, old coffee, and a recently shampooed rug. Rivera stood when I came in, square build, eyes that looked like they'd been honed to see through fur hats. Have a seat. I sat up straight like drill. He flipped open a thin folder. The complainant is a civilian named Sage. Your sister, correct. She alleges you forced a safe and took a silver necklace belonging to your mother. Anything you want to say before I begin? I rested my hands on my knees. The wool of my gloves scratched faintly against my pants. I'll repeat my request, a full and fair investigation. I'll provide everything I brought. He nodded and tapped a small recorder to life. Basic questions. Did you enter the residence of the complainant Sage within the last 48 hours? Yes, to collect my belongings. I notified her by email. I left a note. Did you force open a safe? No. Did you take any necklace? No. The questions moved straight. My answers pushed back like a pallet across smooth concrete. He shifted tone. All right, let's see your documents. I put the envelope on the table and unzipped it. The papers dealt out like face-down cards. Photo of the card on the kitchen table, the key handoff to the building manager, shelf photos before and after, PJX receipts for every item I bought, the printed move-out email, the on-post bunk assignment, the manager receiving the key envelope. Last, the thumb drive. This, I said, has dashcam backups and the GPS log from my vehicle. My teammate, SBC Lewis, can attest he configured them and set the passcode. The logs reflect the time I left post last night. I stopped, remembering JAG. The precise timestamps are in the files. I recommend you review them directly rather than have me characterize them." Rivera paused, then nodded, mental note taken. This one knows the rule book. He lifted each photo, not curious but appraising. Position, light, corner timestamps. "You take a lot of pictures." "I work logistics," I said. "Shift turnover is a habit." One corner of his mouth moved. "Good, so these are before and afters. Do you have a photo of the alleged safe?" "I didn't enter that room." "Keys?" "Only the front door key, which I left on the note." I turned the lease key over to the building manager. He changed posture and pulled another sheet. "Do you know the current location of the necklace?" "No." My chest cinched. The silver star flared behind my eyes. I kept my voice even. "I know my mother usually keeps it and recently planned to take it back to her home. I didn't witness any transfer." He nodded and drew a line on his pad. The pencil on paper sounded like a blade skimming ice. "Okay, your piece is clear," he said. "Next, I'm going to verify your GPS and dashcam, confirm the key handoff with the property manager, document the apartment, and interview the reporting party." He paused, looked up, voice softening half a notch. "Thank you for being professional." I stepped out into gray light, feeling the surface under my boots crack a hairline, not a collapse, a warning. On the steps, I called Captain Reed and recapped exactly what I'd submitted and said. "Solid," he said. "Now wait. If MP needs more, I'll sit in. Don't message the complainant. Keep everything in writing." "Roger, this wasn't a firefight. It was a process where the win or loss is decided by the steadiness of small details." At lunch, I ducked into the warehouse and gave MSG Talek a short report. She listened without a single interruption and asked one question. "You eaten?" I laughed. "Not yet." She handed me a beef stew MRE I usually side-eye. Today it tasted like a promise that my body was still something I could feed, not just a shell braced against weather. Afterward, I straightened my name tape and put my hands on the inventory book. Let my muscles remember that a day can still include simple work and concrete results. That afternoon, the phone buzzed Rivera again. "Can you come back?" My stomach dropped one beat, my voice stayed level. "Yes. Bring the USB, and if possible, I'd like contact info for your teammate, SBC Lewis." "Roger." I pinged Lewis. He shot back instantly. "On my way." The room smelled like fresh toner the second time. Rivera plugged in the drive and waved a younger MP over, both bent to the screen. Dashcam footage spilled white and gray, snow streaking the lens like tiny meteors. Timestamps ran cold in the corner. The GPS log opened into a map of black dots. Rivera zoomed into a time block, looked at me, then at Lewis. "This the passcode, you know?" "Yes," I said, and read it. He typed. It opened. Lewis confirmed the configuration and the disabled loop overwrite. Everything matched. The stiffness between my shoulders eased a notch. Rivera clicked the laptop shut and laced his fingers. "Last question for today. Besides those documents, any witness to the key handoff?" "Yes, hall camera should have it, and the manager himself." "We'll request both." He stood. "Sergeant Quinn, off the record, you handled this by the book. I don't judge anybody without enough data. But from here, a lot of this depends on things outside your control." He held my eyes. Tracking. I buttoned my coat and felt like I was walking a narrow ice bridge with a handrail. Thin, but a handrail. At the door, he called. "One more thing. We pulled video from the apartment doorbell." My heart skipped, my foot missed half a step. "There's traffic in and out the night before you moved. I need you to come in tomorrow to confirm some frames, ID, and time. I'll send an appointment." A draft from the hallway put the outside cold right into the room. I nodded. "Yes, Sergeant." My hand tightened on my bag strap till the leather creaked like an ice face standing up. Outside, the white sky hurt my eyes. From the lot, The world looked ruled into lines I couldn't see but could feel. I knew I was standing at the edge of a fracture, either a harmless hairline that would refreeze overnight, or a seam that would rip the lake if someone placed one wrong step. I tucked my collar into my neck and told myself, "Don't argue. Let the trails speak. Let the snow speak." Then I headed back to my room to meet the truth preserved by a cold little doorbell. The MP office was lit like a light box. Rivera pointed me to a chair and tapped a key. The screen blinked alive, doorbell footage, narrow frame, canted angle, snow slanting past like tiny meteors. In the center, a figure hunched forward, shoulders tucked, both hands tugging something off the living room shelf. I held my breath. That coat, that stance, a strand of chestnut hair slipping from a beanie. I knew. I still counted off like I was in the warehouse. 1, 2, 3, so my voice wouldn't catch. "That's Sage," I said, eyes on the screen. "My sister." Rivera jog-dialed. The timestamp glowed in the corner. The figure hoisted a floral cloth bag. The coat gaped a little, a chain flashed in the bag's mouth when the hallway light swung through. In the same instant, snow smacked the lens and the frame went white noise for half a second, then cleared. I leaned in without meaning to, fingers tightening on the seat. "How long before you moved is this?" he asked. I inhaled, checked the digits. "Night before." He nodded and wrote. Every stroke of his pen sounded like a clean slice on ice. "We'll corroborate," he said, "but next step is checking local pawn shops." I nodded. The word pawn dropped into the room like a thumbtack, pinning the map in place. Rivera shrugged into his jacket. "Ride with me." I blinked. "Now," he nodded. "Daylight's good. In snow, shops are slow, owners have time, and you're the best witness for ID." Outside, the snow had eased. Salt left white seams along the road edges. In the cruiser, the heater thrum filled the silence. No radio, no small talk, just the fan and the tires. We turned into an older strip where wind and years had chewed the wooden signs. The pawn shop sat between a cobbler and a pharmacy, plate glass fogged with gold decals, neon glowing a cold pharmacy green. A bell gave one tired ping when we pushed in. The manager was a thick-set man with clipped beard and a careful face. Rivera flashed his creds, voice official but not hard. "We need your transaction log for this date and any relevant camera footage from the counter. Might take a few minutes." The man lifted a shoulder, waved us to wait, and unlocked a back cabinet. Metal, old leather, and stale smoke hung together in the air. He set down a thick ledger, its corners split. Rivera flipped to the day. Handwritten entries marched like ants. Item, ID number, name. My gaze snagged on a line. Necklace, silver, star pendant. Dark blue ink, the hurried hand of someone rushing to keep up. Time to the right. A name, not Sage's legal name, but the warped block letters she used when she tried to look official. Rivera glanced at me, then at the manager. "Counter cam." The man nodded, woke up an old TV-sized monitor and scrubbed back. Time rolled in reverse, bodies slid like fish. He stopped, nudged forward, hit play. Sage appeared, tugged off the beanie, smoothed the chestnut hair, set the flowered bag on the counter. Her hands shook, not from cold, from hope. The owner asked something, she passed over ID. From the bag, she lifted a small wooden box, tried a smile. The silver star flared under the neon green. Something thumped in my chest like a trapped bird. I dug my nails into my knee and didn't blink. The owner signed, tore off a receipt, the thin thermal kind, numbers ghosting even as they print. Sage tucked it in her pocket. I wanted to shout, "Just a loan, right? You'll get it back, right?" I stood silent. My job here was to watch truth that had already been recorded. "We'll need a copy of the video and the receipt," Rivera said. The manager shrugged. "Paper me, I'll copy anything." Rivera handed over the form. The printer rattled, a page slid out, the totals wrinkled like it had been out in sleet. Item, amount, time, clear enough. I stared at the number, nowhere near worth tearing a person apart, plenty to shove someone already sliding. Rivera tipped his head. ID the customer in the footage. I swallowed. Sage, my sister. A little red dot on the recorder blinked. Logged, Rivera said quietly. Back on the sidewalk, the wind slashed across and brought a metallic smell off frozen light poles. I shoved my hands deep in my pockets, fingertips touching the Fox thumb drive like it was a charm. Rivera opened the cruiser door but didn't get in. Sergeant Quinn, he said, meeting my eyes. This won't make it easier, but your case looks solid. We'll finish the paperwork and I'll recommend a bar order prohibiting MS. Sage from accessing the installation, and we'll be closing the complaint against you. He didn't say sorry, he didn't have to. The period at the end of his sentence did the job. I nodded, not joy, just a pallet's worth of weight lowering to the ground. On the way back, my phone hummed. I didn't answer. I wanted the moment to stay still the way a lake skins over again after it's cracked. Rivera made a call, voice even, confirming we have the video and receipt, copy, forwarding to JAG. He hung up. You'll get a formal notice. If you want to pursue the false report on the civilian side, JAG can walk you through it. For now, head back to post. Rest. Inside the office, he handed me a temporary memo summarizing findings and a note that the bar order was in effect. The words in effect looked like black metal, but the line felt like a thin blanket across my shoulders. Thank you, I said, not to an MP, not exactly, to a person who'd driven a stake into the snow and said, start your line here. I called Captain Reed. Good, he said. We'll receive the packet and stay on, hold your boundaries and keep every transaction supervised. I called MSG Talek. She asked one thing, where are you standing? MP steps. Heads up, she said. I lifted my chin. The sky felt higher. Good, she said and hung up, like the lesson was complete once I remembered to look up. I drove through the gate with the kind of calm only routine can buy. The amber lights tilted open like a familiar friend. In the lot, I sat with my hands on the wheel until my palms dried. No victory laps, no posts, no told you so texts. I boiled water, washed my mug, folded a blanket. I wanted quiet, and quiet here wasn't emptiness. It was air. The phone brightened. This time, the name spelled itself. Mom, I picked up. Her breathing sounded like the white puffs people make in winter air. Harper, she said, voice pulled tight like a string. Sage, she's at the hospital, complications. She's asking for you, she says if you don't come. Mom's sentence unraveled. I stood up like someone had yanked a strap between my shoulder blades. On the table, the bar order lay flat, an ink-black line between two worlds. I looked at it, then at the door, then at my hands. The kettle began to sing. Steam painted the window in foggy streaks, like invisible footprints across the glass. Hospitals have a light that makes everyone look like they're standing under a glacier. White, flat, cold. I stood in the doorway, peeled off my gloves and listened to the heart monitor beep steady like a barracks clock. The bar order in my inner pocket pressed my rib like a seam protection and reminder at the same time. I looked at Mom first, perched on the chair edge, fingers laced, dark half-moons under her eyes like old brush strokes. She glanced up, tried a smile, rasped, "Thank you for coming." I nodded, no questions. The answers were in the disinfectant smell and the green digits on the screen. Sage lay back on the pillow, hair stuck with sweat, eyes swollen. Wrapped in white, she looked like someone yanked from a storm but still shivering at the thought of the next flake. I pulled a chair close, far enough not to tug any lines. We stared at each other, quiet as a frozen lake. Finally, she croaked, "Do you hate me that much?" The question pushed out to stand in for an apology. "No," I said, and it surprised me how true it was, how tired it made me feel. "I hate the game, the loop of debt and blame. I don't hate you." I slid the winterproof envelope from my coat, not to flex, just to remind myself I came here as a person with process, not a self-destructing life raft. "I will help," I said, but there are 3 conditions. Mom lifted her head. Sage shut her eyes like she could keep the weather out. I read slow, the way you read a hand receipt. 1, every dollar for the baby moves through a supervised account, Mom and I as co-owners. I'll transfer on schedule with clear memos. 2, a needs list for the baby, diapers, formula, warm clothes, you or Mom write it, send it to me, I'll buy it and keep the receipts. I won't hand out cash. 3, you enroll in a community debt support class. Every week, you text a photo of attendance or a receipt. No paperwork, no support. Sage opened her eyes and pinned me. You're punishing me. I shook my head. I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls, they are guardrails. They keep drunk legs from falling off a bridge. She gave a dry laugh that cracked like thin ice. And the video? We both knew she meant the doorbell and the pawn counter, the neon flash on the silver star. That goes where it belongs, MP and JAG, I said, voice level. We're not litigating in a hospital. Mom laid a trembling hand on the rail. Sage, agree. I can't do another winter like this. Her voice was an old string tightened to a high note. Sage turned away, eyes flashing like a trapped animal. You always take her side, she hissed. Look at her, she came to deliver terms. I leaned in until my eyes were level with hers and kept my voice low. I came to take care of the baby that's coming. If you want me beside you, then stand up for the part of you that's a mother. That part doesn't speak in scratch-offs and pawn tickets. It speaks in sleep, clean diapers, doctor appointments, and straight answers. She went quiet. The anger drained into a tiredness I recognized. I pulled a cheap hardback notebook and a fat-tip marker from my bag, 2 small weapons for ordinary campaigns, and set them on the tray. This is the baby log, I said. Each page is a week. You and Mom write what she eats, hours she sleeps, what you need. I'll buy off the log, receipts ride in the back pocket. If you're not here, Mom writes. If there's no entry for the week, I assume no request. I wrote the first header. Week 1, Target, NB diapers, bamboo wipes, diaper cream. The words laid down on white like packed snow, firm enough to step on without sinking. The door opened. A doctor passed through, quick checks, good numbers. Sage let out a small breath. A young nurse leaned in, asked if we needed anything. Mom asked for another blanket. I stood, spread it across Sage's legs. The corner snagged a line and I lifted it clear. These are movements I can do half asleep. Logistics people learn to put things where they belong. Back in the chair, I heard Mom's phone buzz in her coat. She looked hesitated, killed the call. I knew who it could be. Outside the window, snow fell lazy as cold ash. Sage shifted, voice smaller, like it was coming from the next room. If I agree, do you come back? I looked at her, then at Mom. In my head, I stood on a long bridge laid over a white valley. The middle span was every year we lived the wrong roles. I'm not moving back in, I said, each word clear. I'll show up by schedule, receipts, and the stuff that can't be pawned. I'll be here for the baby and there for myself. Both need me to be clear. She turned to the wall, tears sliding quiet. I didn't stand to hug her like before. I dragged the chair a little closer, so she knew I was in this room without stepping over my line. A while later, Mom leaned toward me and whispered, "Thank you." I took her hand, cold like a metal bar left outside, and felt a slow heat rise like soup warming on a stove. I slipped the marker free and put it in her palm. "You're co-owner on the account," I said. "I'll send the setup. Every purchase, I'll drop the receipt in the thread. You double-check me." She nodded, and her eyes lit with the kind of light only housekeepers of decades carry, the light of someone finally handed a key. I stayed until a nurse swapped the Roman IV bag. When I stood to leave, Sage spoke without turning. "If I slip, will you hate me?" The question fell like a snowflake that melts before it lands. "No," I said, "but I'll stop support if you break the rules. That's how I keep both of us from falling." I squeezed Mom's shoulder for a second. The door slid open and a corridor's worth of cold slapped my face, waking me like a dunk in ice water. Downstairs in the lobby, I texted Rivera. I was at the hospital. Please route contact through Mom. I won't communicate with Sage outside our agreed channels. He pinged back. Roger. I texted Captain Reed that I'd honor the bar order and keep all transfers through the supervised account. He answered. Good, paper wins. I smiled at that. True, paper beats the blizzard. On the drive back to post, snow sprinkled the windshield like salt. The traffic report on the radio sounded calm. The town felt like a big animal catching its breath after a sprint. I parked, went upstairs, hung my coat, and put the kettle on. When the steam started spinning into threads, my phone lit. Email. Officer candidate school conditional offer. I froze like someone called my name from a distant ridge. I opened it. Conditions, report date, documents list. The smell of peppermint tea mixed with the faint thermal paper scent still tucked in winterproof, and I almost laughed. So freedom smells like this. I laid my palm on the notebook and felt my pulse thump through the paper. Outside, the day's last flake tapped the pane and vanished, like the truth has a temperature of its own. The OCS email sat in my inbox like a lit stone. Every morning I opened it once, not to make sure it was still there, but to teach my heart the tempo of a new chapter. I started closing my life out like a one-woman issue point. Turn in the room, clear the extra locker, ship a box of books to Mom's, stage the PT gear tight in my ruck. Between small tasks, Sage's emails came to Mom and me. Proof of attendance pics from the debt class, a baby list written in fat marker in the new log. Each one felt like a brick set back into a cracked bridge. I kept my replies short, attached diaper receipts, hit transfer completed in the supervised account. No flourishes. Paperwork is the sound of steady boots on hardpack. One afternoon Mom called. Come by, she said, voice so soft I could hear our old front door creak behind her. I drove over. No snow, just that pewter Alaska light when the season changes clothes without warning. Mom waited on the porch with the same worn scarf. Inside, the wooden box sat exactly where it should, the dark grain oiled and calm. She touched it but didn't open it. I'm sorry, she said, eyes not flinching anymore. For the bad things I let myself think. I shook my head. You kept the house. I kept the paper. Both were survival. She smiled, poured tea. We listened to the wall clock knock out even seconds. When I stood, she pressed a hand-knit scarf into my palms. Take it, she said. Where you're going, you're still mine. That night the Post threw a little OCS send-off. Smoke lifted in ribbons, cold air braided the smell of brisket and sap. People talked louder than usual to push the wind back. Lewis tossed me a burger and winked. Eat up, future sir. I snorted. Long road yet. He raised a soda with parade face seriousness. Supply NCOs hard as fasteners. Our cans clicked. MSG Talc came last, quiet as always, and set 3 things on the table. A small patch stitched on her comfort, a tiny white plastic fox like a prize from a surprise egg, and a folded sheet of paper. First one is what you chose, she said. Second is what you learned. Move light, move smart. Third is what you always forget to say out loud. I unfolded it. 4 clean lines in caps. Eat, sleep, write, run. She clapped my shoulder like setting a latch. OCS is rhythm. Storms can't steal rhythm. We ate, laughed, traded dumb war stories, field kitchen blowouts, pallets that wind skated all the way to the gate. I stepped aside and watched the amber floodlights glaze the hard grass like a rug newly washed. I pictured walking away with a ruck that felt featherlight because I'd finally put down what wasn't mine to carry. A little country tune crackled from a Bluetooth speaker about long roads and people who stay. Grease smoke stuck to my jacket. I told myself not to wash it yet. Some smells are credentials. Next morning, I stopped by the hospital on the schedule. Sage sat by the window, cradling a newborn, her face thinner, her eyes warmer. Mom dozed in the chair. Sun filtered through a thin curtain, turning the room into an inside-out snow hut. Sage didn't speak at first. Then she tipped the blanket so I could see a slick black tuft of hair and a squirm the size of my hand. I didn't touch, didn't take her. I stood close enough to let the scent of milk stamp itself in my memory. "What's her name?" I asked. "Aurora," she whispered, like asking permission from the sky. I nodded. The word landed in my ear like warm metal. Before I left, I set diapers and bamboo wipes on the tray with the receipt clipped under the elastic. Sage pressed her lips together. "Thank you," she said, the first full one. Leaving day, I woke early, not out of need, out of habit. I policed the barracks room, wiped the edge of the desk, stripped the bed, killed the kettle switch, folded the blanket square like a slice of cake. In the ruck's outer sleeve, I tucked the Honor Comfort patch, the toy fox, and the EAT. Sleep. Write. Run. Card where my hand could find them without looking. Locking the door, I saw an envelope pushed under the threshold. Kid handwriting on the front. Inside, a drawing from my nephew, a white fox in a storm, a runway behind it, a figure with a coat and a rolling bag. At the bottom, wobbly letters, "Boundaries are love." My throat tightened the way it does when you refuse to cry and your body votes otherwise. I slid the card into my notebook, first page of a new tab. The parade field still breathed last night's damp. A flatbed idled. The driver leaned out to ask if I needed a lift. I shook my head. I wanted the walk. The concrete to the gate ran like a strip of ice between two countries. Behind me the night shifts, the receipts, the midnight fastener counts. Ahead of me the schoolhouse and its tests, pages to read, reports to write until my hands went dry. Dew salted the grass like fine table salt. I passed Lewis strapping a load. "Send me pinning pics," he called. "If you sweat, don't crop it, keep it real." I laughed and nodded at him like nodding to someone who keeps the oath for you when you're tired. The gate opened. I swiped. The reader chirped one dry beep. I paused and looked back. The buildings, the lot, the flag, everything that taught me discipline isn't a choke, it's knowing when to reach out. Far off, MSG Talik stood at her office steps, hands in her pockets, gave me the smallest nod. I returned it and stepped forward. The eastern sky raised its shade one notch. No snow, just clear, glass-cold air and the sound of my boots. I was headed to a place where they call your name, grade your form, and measure you in something heavier than plates. The willingness to endure. I'd meet people who look you straight on and ask what you believe. I'd answer by getting up early, eating enough, sleeping enough, riding what needs riding, and running until my pulse became a machine. I'd remember how I walked from a kitchen with a lottery flyer to a Lightbox Sprite MP office, from a door closing in a whiteout to a gate opening in morning light. At every stage I left a mark, receipt, photo, letter, a kid's card. If anyone asked how I made it through, I'd tell them. I followed my own trail. The coach bus sighed to a stop, the doors folded with a short hiss. I climbed, palm closing on cold steel. The driver nodded the way long-haul drivers do, witness to 1,000 departures. I took a window seat. The small town shrank, the post shrank, the snow hills leaned back. My breath fogged a round print on the glass and vanished. I pulled out my phone, skimmed the OCS email one last time. Nothing new. Didn't need new. I blacked the screen, leaned into the headrest, and watched the sky brighten. Somewhere up the road, there'll be a pinning, sweat on my collar, someone reading my name, a hand on my shoulder to set a new mark. I don't know the time and don't need it. Some moments don't ask for numbers. They lodge in memory by feel. I let out a long breath. Under my jacket, the Honor Comfort patch rode neat against my inner pocket. In the other, the Boundaries Are Love card tapped my rib like a metronome telling me to square my spine. I smiled as the bus bent away from town and the sun suddenly slipped over a ridge, pouring a thin, straight beam across my window. Northern sunrise doesn't offer good luck. It just lays out the road and watches. The rest is my footprints.